For as long as there have been comic books, there's been comic book merchandise. Be they free gifts included in the publications themselves, or items that you might receive via the mail or from your local five and dime, these tie-ins help boost the popularity of both individual characters and the medium of comics itself. In spite of its humble beginnings, comic merchandise truly took off over the decades and by the 1960s was selling as well as, if not better than, the comics that the concept sprang from. Join us now as we take a look at some of the most unlikely products ever produced, and don't be surprised when you realize just how much of the stuff you had yourself. I'm Jason Mink, and it's time for breakfast.
Breakfast!
In the beginning, much of the comic merchandise marketed made sense in as far as relating to its featured character. A Superman playset or Captain Marvel on a paper glider was more than reasonable, as was the Captain America Sentinel of Liberty Club, where kids received this very official-looking ID card and genuine metal badge. Heck, even these Freak Brothers rolling papers make sense in context. But plastic jewelry? Hey, I'm not going to be the one to say that flicker rings aren't cool, even if they are way too small to fit on my oversized sausage fingers. Then again, they were a dime, and with 2 more cents, you could have gotten an actual comic book. Seems like an easy decision to me. There were other ways to wear your favorites, of course. Maybe you were a button booster. Hey, pins are in, and you can fit quite a few of them on your jacket. What better way of proving your loyalty than by repeatedly stabbing yourself in the chest with an icon bearing your favorite character's image? And let's not forget patches, which were all the rage in the denim-loving 1970s. Hey, where are my Moon Mullins fans at? And even Thor made the patch scene, although he looks a touch wall-eyed here. Then again, it was the 1970s, I reckon we all were. Iron-ons were also an easy and cheap way for fans to rock their favorite characters. After all, your local Woolworths might balk at carrying a Mr. Natural t-shirt, so it was on you and Hanes to make it happen. Some of the most memorable of these tees were designed by Roach, whose colorful comic ads captivated yesterday's readers. Personalization was important then, as much as now. For example, when my stepfather came back from Sears with my new bike, and the damn thing was purple and white, you can bet I personalized the hell out of it with Marvel stickers. And I caught hell for it too, but in no time did I regret it. Well, except when they stopped making those stickers. Here's another item I had that is lost to the sands of time. It's Amsco's Marvel World playset. Made out of cardboard, this was a snap-together affair featuring artwork directly from the comics themselves. A city block featuring some of Marvel's most famous locations, this item is now considered a grail among many collectors, myself included. At this scale, a clever child might incorporate some of their other toys into the action as well, like this Corgi Spider-Copter. What does Spider-Man need a helicopter for? Your guess is as good as mine, but it looked cool. Not so much this Captain America van. I'm not sure how effective this would be at sneaking up on bad guys, but if we look through the rear view window, we can see that Cap has managed to lure at least a few inside for a whooping. If the van is a rockin', I don't know, call S.H.I.E.L.D., I guess? Cap's van is downright dignified compared to the Spider-Man scooter. I know, it looks like someone bashed it together as a joke, but here's the box to prove its bona fides. Spidey wasn't even the only one to rock this scooter, as Thor and Captain America were also issued straddling it. I guess we can't all be as cool as this Ghost Rider bike and figure from 10 years later. The best many of us could hope for was dousing our Evil Knievel in Zippo lighter fluid and sending him off, but that really only worked once. Marvel heroes weren't the only ones out ramming around, as evidenced by this. Corgi's Supermobile has been the butt of jokes for years, and rightly so. Superman zipping around in a little blue jet with fists kind of undermines the character's essential appeal, never mind how hard it must be to actually hit or grab anything with a set of metal boxing gloves mounted to pistons on your front end. Yes, we've seen it in the comics before, and no, that doesn't make it any better. For all that, it's not half as lame as this Shazam car from the same company, which appears to have my local deli owner Murray driving. Hey, I thought you said this brisket was fresh, Murray. It wasn't only boys getting off the ground, as Mego produced Wonder Woman's Invisible Jet for this comic action hero's playset. How do we know? Mostly rumor and conjecture, but until we learn to trust again, we'll never really fully heal, folks. Speaking of Wonder Woman merch, here's an item which had to ring some bells even back in those more innocent times. Then again, it could be worse. It can always be worse. Gumball machines proved an ideal way to get merch to eager customers, but what to put in them? Well, if you produced comic books, the answer was simple. Tiny comics. 1966 saw 6 mini-comics produced featuring all of your favorite Marvel characters. Spidey, Hulk, Captain America, and Millie the Model. Hey, girls had dimes too, and Marvel wasn't about to leave any change on the table. These books featured cardboard covers and black and white interiors, which, unlike regular comics, did not stand up to repeated readings. Subsequently, these are both hard to find and highly collectible, so good luck completing your set. The mini-comics were issued as party favor cake toppers, but the real deal was getting a figure or two on your birthday cake. This plastic Batman would have been a prize to any fan long after the candles had been blown out. Okay, sure, the paint isn't perfect, but he still made a great addition to your plastic army. Now, I'm pretty sure this was a reuse of a previously issued figure from an older playset, which featured the Batcave hideout along with an assortment of plastic villains. Now, I'm not entirely sure who this mouse fellow is, but I'll take him over the umpteenth version of the Penguin or the Riddler any day of the week. Cakes and playsets weren't the only places to get non-articulated action figures. Anyone ever have the parachuting heroes? Rack toy producer AHI understood all too well that the flimsy plastic of their chutes would quickly fail, but that kids would still keep their remains as an action figure of sorts. So why were their arms perpetually up like that? I'm guessing it was all the band roll-on. That stuff was vile. And because there's no satisfactory transition from a deodorant joke, we'll just turn back to rack toys. A post-war phenomena, America's move to plastic ensured cheap playthings for decades to come. Maybe Mom wouldn't pony up the $4 for a nice Mego 8-inch figure, but you could probably squeeze her for some change. Sadly, these rack toys were mostly hollow dolls or guns, as these were the easiest to label swap. That is, slapping a character sticker on any old piece of crap. This created a disconnect when it came to characters like the Batman, who specifically opposed toting firearms around. I mean, look at the sheer amount of armament bearing the Bat logo. Bruce could take on an army single-handedly. These items are highly collectible now, especially in the package. Believe it or not, Wayne Munitions hadn't completely cornered the market on firearms, as evidenced by this Captain America gun and knife set. Sure, these items make sense for your average soldier, but they transform Cap into something considerably darker than the version readers are familiar with. That knife means business. Another easy rack item to sticker swap were flashlights. A flashlight doesn't seem like much of a toy by today's standards, but this was decades before everyone had a cell phone app to use as a light source. Heck, I remember getting my flashlight and knocking around in the darkened laundry room until my parents made me stop. Another rag toy I had and loved as a kid was this Marvel stamp set. I liked it for the same reason I liked Color Forms or Presto Magics. Any opportunity to produce my own comic-style adventures appealed to me. The stamp set was especially compelling because it included characters rarely seen in licensing, like Hawkeye, Vision, and the Human Torch. This proved a favorite stamp to play with, as inking it with red, orange, and yellow markers in succession created an acceptable flame effect. That's how we did it in the days before TikTok filters and Photoshop, kids. And while we're talking Torch, how about this Mexican knockoff cast in both classic red and now stoplight yellow? Perhaps the most revered rack toy of all time is Fun Stuff's Spider-Man web shooter. Essentially a dart gun you wore on your wrist, the web was a string connecting the dart to said shooter. If you were expecting something closer to what the kid in the comics cooked up, you'd be very disappointed. But if you were like me and went for anything with Spider-Man printed on it, then this was a must-have. It sold so well that Fun Stuff produced versions for the Hulk and Captain America as well, although these made even less sense from a character perspective. The web shooter was the one to have, especially if you could pair it with a leftover Mark's Halloween costume, or, more comfortably, a t-shirt from the Spider-Man Underoos set. I used a ski mask, much like this one in my adventures, very uncomfortable for summer crime fighting. Spidey wasn't the only hero offering potential for personal transformation. Remco's Incredible Hulk Instant Muscles wrote a check that they could never hope to cash. Eye-catching box art sells the concept well enough, but the flaws should be apparent to the sharp-eyed viewer. While it does indeed inflate in critical areas like the chest and biceps, it does little for the rest of your skinny 9-year-old frame, undercutting the transformation illusion somewhat. And that instant bit, well, it's really only instant if you can squeeze the inflator bulb about 400 times in the space of a few seconds, the hulking out process akin to an out-of-date can of beans swelling on a pantry shelf. Lastly, it does precious little for one's skin complexion, which is a key element in the Hulkster's appearance. In short, this was the shoddiest of junk, bringing young Mink the shocking realization that an old mask and a ripped-up flannel shirt was both a lot cheaper and way more fun. I'm sure many of us remember the ad featuring Spidey, Hulk, and Captain America in Halloween costumes, but did anyone have the Red Skull? What, did Green Goblin ask for too much money? I guess the thinking was that kids would gravitate towards this creepy skull appearance, but it really feels like an out-of-left-field choice, even for the time period. Imagine if they'd gone that route and given us an elastic Red Skull or Red Skull-branded multivitamins. The mind wobbles. And speaking of, I think Mom's getting a little too friendly with a certain web spinner. She even stalked him to this in-person appearance for Marshall Boots, although when he saw her coming, he ran out the back door. Guess he was out of web fluid. Merch just wasn't plastic trinkets and playthings, but useful, real-world items like lunchboxes. I was lucky enough to own this one in the mid-1970s, and it featured some truly terrific artwork. Not only did it have marquee characters like the Fantastic Four, but lesser-known properties like Iron Man and the Falcon. The Vision even made it onto the thermos. For all that, it was the inclusion of the John Buscema drawn Yellow Jacket that caught my eye, years before I read about him in the comics. The image was reused in the 7-Eleven Cup series soon after. Talk about taking something for granted. These free cups were offered with the purchase of a fountain drink, and many folks simply discarded them once they'd consumed the contents. Who knew that decades later people would shell out big bucks to complete a set? Like the song says, you don't know what you got till it's gone. Happily, I've managed to replace a few of my Pepsi Moon fast food giveaway glasses from the same era. No, I don't drink out of them. I keep my action figures in them. It's called getting two birds stoned at once, and I'm all for it. Here's one of my favorite Pepsi Moon glasses featuring Supergirl. This has always been my ideal look for the character, and I feel it's a truly iconic version. Up close, and the image has a pop art quality that only adds to its appeal. Here's the original control art the image was sourced from, as well as this spiffy placemat from Casano's Pizza and Seafood. And dig this promo image from back in the day featuring a live-action version of Kara. Hello, nurse! And now, to foam. Crazy Foam, that is. Crazy Foam started off as its own thing, but to keep sales bubbling, they licensed characters to help sell the product, leading to this. Having foam pour out of a hole in Spider-Man's face is one thing, but to have Superman spew it from his oddly pursed lips, that's just a bridge too far. The recent reintroduction of the branded foam only compounds the original sin. Please, just stop. Speaking of Wonder Woman, here she is featuring joint action. I expected to get that with the Freak Brothers rolling papers. They really work, too. Or so I've been told. Other practical merch a comic fan might land were calendars. Here's one from our friends at Harvey Comics, celebrating their 25th year. Sadly, Harvey never made any merch of the snarky alien robot thing from their Jigsaw comic, which is a shame. He would have made an amazing standing ashtray. And who remembers the yo-yo craze? Yo-yos were a fine place to slap a sticker of a popular character if you were looking to move a few more cases. These were usually pretty no-frill affairs. The most compelling thing about the Spidey version is the package. Not so with this Archie yo-yo, where our boy looks a bit sick from all the spinning. That makes a nice segue to Betty here, who's clearly seen things no teen should ever witness. With as much Archie as we usually talk here, I feel we at least need to consider these Mark's action figures of the gang, who are in turn considering how the heck they're going to fit into that tiny car. Next up, food. Remember that stuff? While less common today, at one point you could not only find it on store shelves, but you could also find it branded by your favorite heroes. This Superman bread is tasty and nourishing, if a little plain. So how about some Superman peanut butter to jazz things up? It turns out the S is for sticks to the roof of your mouth. That's okay, some delicious and wholesome Batman milk will do the trick. Wait, bats are mammals, so questions abound here. It's also good on your cornflakes, and even alongside a slice or two of pizza. Who likes heartburn, am I right? And if that's not enough dairy for you, how about you dip your Superman fries in your Superman pasteurized processed cheese food? Looks like the big guy just blew his own cape up. Whatever he says, do not pull his finger. Lest it seem like we're neglecting action figures, well, we are. We spend enough time on those already, but these pocket heroes are always worth a laugh. The crooked arm is ostensibly to simulate punching action. Okay, sure, they're definitely punching something. Best to come back in 5 minutes, I guess. Here's a rebranded Micronauts vehicle trying to pass itself off as being Batman-related. There's no way he's gonna beat Martin Prince in the soapbox derby. He'd be better off in one of these. At least it's canon. Know what else is canon? Bat grenades. Seems like a strange choice for a guy so opposed to killing. Perhaps they're low yield and simply maim. That seems more humane. Not so these Batman candy cigarettes. That's right, guns and smokes, kids. It's the Uncle Mom and Dad never let you see anymore. Then again, maybe there's something to that. I mean, he did sign off on this. Yes, by now, I know for many it's old hat, but if I can scar at least one pair of fresh eyes with this abomination, then my work here is done. It's pretty much an example of synergistic perfection, all of the elements immaculately balanced to create the undeniable whole. That's whole with a W, by the way, lest you think I'm taking this less than seriously. Poor Popeye also suffered the same indignity, although this is less funny and more sad. I'm pretty sure I ride the bus with this guy. Let's wrap it up in perhaps the only sensible way with the Incredible Hulk, Amazing Spider-Man, toilet paper. There's a complete story in every roll. But hey, Isn't that always the way? Comics and merchandise go hand in hand, and in spite of it occasionally falling short of expectations, I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm Jason Mink, and I'll see you next time at breakfast.